Some of the greatest lessons don't come through what we see, they come through what we feel.
Work that said, "See me. Zach, that's the superintendent."
I know once I was done with school, I was like, I'm done with that, not going back.
And it just took a lot of hours and a lot of time and effort to do.
You entered the classroom to start to teach those with visual impairments.
And if they're learning something in particular in their classroom that the teacher needs help teaching, then you can help with that.
What types of things are introduced at a young age that we never even think about?
Do it slowly, one step at a time, and be easy on yourself. You can do it.
Hey friends, welcome back to the SwagAbility Show. Some of the greatest lessons don't come through what we see, they come through what we feel and what we choose to believe. My guest today once lost everything she thought defined her: her marriage, her security, her future. But when she became a Braille teacher, she discovered a whole new way to see, not just words on a page, but the resilience of human spirit. Today, we explore what it means to see beyond sight with Gail Showalter. Gail, thanks for spending a few moments with me on the SwagAbility Show.
I am so glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's our second meeting together, and I've sure enjoyed listening to everything from wisdom about life right down to some of these students that you speak about, and in the midst of writing a book, as I understand it, correct? Number two, or I can't remember what number of book it is now. You've got out. Your first book title was.
Well, I wrote a little book called Time for Art that was published by the American Printing House for the Blind. And I was
Right.
included, my stories were included in numerous other books, but my main book was Living, Learning, Loving, which is insights and
Right.
encouragement for for moms on a pathway to motherhood.
Yeah, you understood that in real time, and it breaks my heart that you had to go through what you went through on our podcast match. In just reading your bio, um, the house, the boat, the retirement, and then not. But I applaud you for the things that you've accomplished uh, as a result of, I believe, your faith. We share a common faith. And Let's just talk and take it right back to the beginning of the story, where all of a sudden, coming from a teaching background, you're approached by someone that you've known for a while, and they task you with no longer just teaching, but are asking you to help educate some children without sight. Can you bring us back to that time and into that story?
Yes, yes. I was single. I was teaching high school, and I was pretty miserable at the job. I wanted something more. I wanted something else. I had preteens at home and teens at work, and I didn't want to do the discipline in the classroom, grading papers, etc. And so I'd looked for another job, but I hadn't found anything. I had really, thought I could. I had a master's degree at this point, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get a different job. And it just didn't work. It didn't work. And this, you're under contract. So school starts, I'm under contract, I go back to work. And I was so miserable. Every night I knelt by my bed, and I don't do this regularly, but I did then. I knelt by my bed and I said, Lord, I must be where you want me. Please get me through another day. And climbing to bed, collapsed. I did that from the beginning of the school year until October the 6th. And on October the 6th, I get this little note in my cubbyhole at work that said, "See me. Zach, that's the superintendent."
Yes.
And I thought, oh dear, I'm in trouble now. And I thought of all the things I could done maybe wrong,
Yes.
what in the world have I done that he wants to talk to me personally? So I go into his office after school. and he starts grinning. So I knew I wasn't in trouble, but I still had no clue what he was going to ask.
Yeah.
And turns out he was recruiting me to teach a particular special position for all of the students in our district and a neighboring district that was in a co op with the state to teach children who are visually impaired. And in this case, there were several that were blind and needed Braille instruction. This all meant, of course, that I would have to go back to college one more time. And that would have to be in Austin, which is, we didn't have anything, locally for this. So
At what
that's what
age,
I did.
may I ask? I'm certainly not gonna ask you your age now, but at what age did this ask and come back to college, start? Because I know once I was done with school, I was like, "I'm done with that, not going back." What age was this, and how long was that course? I'll do it roughly. It doesn't need to be right on for me.
I was in my 40s.
Okay. I'm
I
going
was
back
in
to
my
school.
40s. And yeah, and I'm a lot older than that now. A whole lot older than that now.
We call that
So they call me
wisdom.
here in Texas that I'm the old bird with feathers of wisdom for women, and that's my logo. So,
Love it.
yeah, but I did go back to college twice in my 40s, and I still encourage women to go right ahead and try it if that's something that they have a mind to do, and they can do.
Is it, you said it wasn't available locally. Did that mean packing up for family, taking family and children to a new place and taking care of all of those things that require home's attention, plus learning something that I'm assuming, I maybe I shouldn't assume, but that you knew nothing about, teaching for the blind?
That's right.
Uh,
That is right. Ironically, when I was in high school, I had played the part of Helen Keller,
really?
and I did, and I won some awards for that. And I developed a real strong empathy at the time, but that passed and years passed. But yeah,
Did
I
Zach I'm sorry, did Zach know you from previous years, or the
yes,
man that approached you and with a big grin
yes,
on
he
his
knew
face?
me. He knew me, and he knew what he was asking.
Okay,
And uh, he once told me, "I haven't figured you out. You're either crazy or you're an angel."
or both.
Because I take on projects that other people didn't want.
Wonderful.
But and I am sometimes crazy that way. But yeah, he knew me, and I did go back to school with those kids. I had to go. I'm in Southeast Texas, near Beaumont, where a lot of hurricanes have hit. In case you don't know where that is,
Okay.
and I had to drive west to Austin, which is 5 hours. So I couldn't do that every day. So, yes, I had to figure out a way to do this. Did one course online, I did one course that they were teaching at a service center. And then I had to spend a summer in Austin and make plans for my children while I was finishing that degree in Braille training, because I had to have a special ed degree too, which I didn't have.
I
So I
see.
had that on top of it.
Because there'd be state requirements, for you to hold that position? Is that why there would have to be that portion added? Mm,
And I learned along the way that the state approved this, but they had never done that before,
okay.
because was going to start teaching in January after that October, and I didn't have a certificate at the time. So I had to be covered by other people who would come in that did have a certificate.
Now, for learning something new in school, it's one thing cited, right? But I'm thinking you going back as a teacher, having to learn a completely different concept, right? Of how to teach, because there's so many things I don't think that would be transferable over into teaching someone with severe or visual impairment. Was that education in itself?
Yeah, I had no I had no clue what all was available. At that time, there was quite a bit of technology, not anything as good as there is now. But at that time, we did have Braille readers, we had computers that could translate a text into Braille when they worked. I mean, I spent time at night up there trying to figure out how to fix things. I would have somebody on the phone telling me, "This is a motherboard. This is what you need to do with it." And, I was just completely clueless. So, yes, it was a complete learning curve. And I mean, I didn't have to learn Braille by touch, of course, but I did have to learn the codes. And that was the easy part. The harder part was just getting through all the coursework that I had to have in order to be certified. And it just took a lot of hours and a lot of time and effort to do that.
So, in an estimate, I don't know, what roughly amount of time went into this training, getting re-educated before you entered the classroom to start to teach those with visual impairments? How long would that have taken you?
I, I went right into it
Wow.
without finishing the training.
Oh, wow.
That was the big hook. I went into it on my own, learning as I went without the certificate, which didn't make everybody totally happy, but they didn't have anybody else.
Right.
And so it took me a year while I was on the job, a year at night and weekends to get, and that summer to get my certification.
Hmm. Now, teaching with Braille, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just about reading dots. Is it more about unlocking concepts and things like that, or is Braille still a form of our alphabet that would teach phonetically, or is it? I don't even know where to begin with questioning the understanding of Braille and what you had to learn to pass on to those that are every day we take for granted are seeing in a complete different way than we do.
Yeah. Well, with a child, if a child is born blind,
Yeah.
they are entitled to education from birth through age 21.
Hmm.
So we start babies with various things to get them to develop properly. And the one that I tell people that seems to resonate the most is that, a baby will push up on its hands and elbows to lift its head to see things in front of it, toys or whatever.
Right.
Well, a blind baby doesn't do that because they're not motivated. So you have to have a therapist, usually a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, to work with a baby so that they develop that muscles in their shoulders and their arms and all of those things you wouldn't normally even think about.
I wouldn't have
Because
even thought that. Yeah.
yeah, the things that a baby does because they see something when they lift their head to
Yes.
look at something. You have to motivate that. And so there's that. And then early years, you'll do things with them to stimulate the touch in their fingertips. One of the things that's real common is you put a toy or some object in a bucket of rice, and they have to go down into the rice and find it with their fingers. So
Mm.
you're stimulating that touch of the fingers, and you do that in a lot of different ways.
Now, our parents, sorry, I cut you off there. Is this something that you said you start this right basically when they're born and that education starts? Is this something that parents are taught or were taught at that time, or at that time often did parents that had children that were born without sight, did they have to send them to a school in order to get their best education?
Well, that's a big question because uh, babies usually are not sent to a school, a residential school,
Of course.
but you have people from the school district, whether they're a trained teacher of the visually impaired or occupational or physical therapist, go to the home
Okay.
and work with the baby. until the child is about 3, and then they go into a preschool program in the school district.
And this year was what? What year would have this been? I'm thinking things change over the years, so I'm wondering, like, you know, even when you were back 20, 30, 40 years ago, this was the case that they were still sending physios and people into the home?
Oh, yeah, this was way back in the 1990 and all, back in that time,
Okay.
because, that's been a law for quite a while, and I'd have to look up the law because I don't know when that was established,
Mm,
but it's been around for a while. And then, the same teacher stays with the child as they start school and go into pre-K or pre-kindergarten, we call it here.
mm.
And so uh, they have all of this training and leading up to reading, but there's not, just the Braille. There's other concepts that they have to develop. The name of a ball is a sphere. Here, this is a cone, and you have actual objects that they can touch and identify a cube from a sphere, from a cone. And so you start these things very young. And most children pick up on things if they don't have any hearing or speech loss.
That was my next question. Yeah. What happens with this if their auditory, and those sensories are impaired? Does Of course, children are resilient, but, um, what types of things are introduced at a young age that we never even think about, to help them, to the best of their ability?
I don't know a lot about deaf education.
Mhm,
I do know that deaf ed and deafness is deaf hearing loss is very severe issue, more severe than some people realize. What you miss when you don't hear.
mm,
So a child that has dual loss, like hearing and vision, that is a really complex situation, and I did not deal with that.
mhm.
I simply dealt with the vision loss. And so, that would be another topic for another day, for
For
another
sure.
person.
Yeah, and you simply dealt with I don't think there was anything simple to that learning. So, take us through, you've had your education, um, take us through now your first experience in the classroom and, and and how that looked for, you as a new teacher, giving these children, a chance, to learn.
Well, of course, I didn't have a whole classroom. I had a resource room where the student would come to me, or I would take the student out of a regular classroom and work one on one with that student, depending on where they were along the process.
Mm,
Like one girl was 4 when I came, so she was preschool and just learning. Another little boy was about 6 when I came, and he had lost his vision due to a bad infection. So I had very different situations. One other situation was a person with low vision, meaning they could use enlarged worksheets. They could use closed circuit television where you put pictures in and they came up on the screen enlarged, like math, for example. We always use those for math because math can get complicated any other way. And so we had various ways to adapt the material. Legally, the students have a right to the same material that all the visually capable
absolutely.
students have. And that is where the rub would come in, trying to provide every day the material in the classroom for the student who needed it. And that meant the teacher had to get it to you in advance for you to prepare it. So the first time I was working with a student, I would have that student to myself and we would work on very simple things. The beginning thing you might do with a pre-Braille student is there's just pages and pages of lines for them. Follow this line, take your fingers and follow this line, and then move down and follow it until they get used to that process of going. left to right, left to right, left to right. And that is something that they very primary, beginning. And you have different tools like that the state provides for them to work with.
Hmm.
And if they're learning something in particular in their classroom that the teacher needs help teaching, then you can help with that. It could sometimes be math, because math can be complicated in Braille. It's another code. But you could take manipulatives that you would give the child to you to touch. How many sticks here? How many sticks here? What happens if I remove 2 sticks here? Until you start to see this is a process. This is a math process, but it's done with manipulatives. And so in those cases, that was really not that difficult when you have students who are sharp, but a lot of students who have a disability, a visual disability, also have a mental uh, delay
Yes.
or some other condition. So that can be complicated.
What surprised you most about working with your students who were blind or visually impaired? Because I've heard teachers say, I go and teach, but sometimes they come home and say, I thought I was going to teach, but I learned something completely new today from my student. Was there any cases like that for you?
I've written a whole book. Yeah, the the things I learned from these students, I would probably put under the heading of optimism,
Okay.
because I couldn't imagine how they could be as optimistic as they were under the circumstances that they were dealing with. And yet they did. They had this idea, I can do this. One student whose mother I just visited with a few minutes ago, when she was in about the 4th grade, didn't have much vision at all. She had a prosthetic eye. She didn't have much vision at all in the other eye, and she lost that after about the 6th surgery. And so I remember being so depressed and so concerned about what to do and how to handle it. And so I was teaching her the Braille math, which, like I said, is another code and it's complicated. And so, but she knew Braille really well, which helped. And I was trying to explain this to her, and I could see that it was a little bit, hard on her. And so I just said, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. We have plenty of time. But she picked right up on my concern. She said, don't worry about me. I got this. I'm young. And I thought, what an attitude of optimism that is. So, yeah, that's one of the surprises that I had.
Have uh, have there been students that, of course, I would think many hours and working closely with them, there would be almost maybe a little bit of a different bond than just teaching from the front of a class. Are there students today that you've taught maybe 30, 20, 30 years ago or more that will still stay in contact with you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have three in particular who keep in contact with me. They are grown women. One has a PhD and works on her own in her apartment in Houston. I just visited with her mother, who's just sent me an entire notebook of information that I'm going to be writing about. And the other one is working on a PhD. She's a member of Mensa, and she is graduated with honors at University of Texas, and now she's working on a PhD at Texas A&M University. And the third one is a woman who has a son who also developed the same genetic disability she has. He's now 9 years old, and she's a single mom, and she has a degree and works. She had a degree in emergency management,
Yeah.
but she's had trouble getting a job because that is really hard. Companies don't see what they can do. They don't see them as I see them.
There's an inequality. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, yes, those 3 girls, women, are special, and we've been contacted. And, you know, when I was working, I was an advocate for my students,
Mhm.
even though I was employed and paid by a school district. So I was kind of pulled, you know, between the two. And I found myself often relating to the parents. And that may be why I still do today.
I think that's an amazing thing. Obviously, you learned from them and they learned from you, but the lessons beyond the classroom, um, and the respect level, there must be kind of that camaraderie between those students. Um, you said that your time as a Braille teacher helped you understand the power of adapting, and that same lessons carried into your work with single moms. Can we talk about what that connection was and looked like?
Yeah. Well, all those years that I was teaching, I was a single mom. I was a single mom of three for about 16 years, and my three children were born in 37 months. I mean, had one baby right after the other. I don't recommend that, but it was good for them. They had fun, and so after I remarried, I just kept thinking about those moms, and I realized I became a coach. I started an organization. We did a lot of retreats for single moms. We did special programs for them, did a lot of gifting and that sort of thing. And in 2007, I began to realize that the one thing the single moms needed, especially the moms who didn't have a good, steady income, was they needed some sort of certificate, a degree, or training that they didn't have. And so I coupled up with another organization. I started a nonprofit, and now we have trained, we have supported single moms who are now radiologists, licensed professional vocational nurses. We have one police officer. We have dental hygienist, you know, and that sort of thing. And so these moms are able to change their lives because they have a way to provide for their children. And my favorite story about this is recently, last May, we had a mom graduate. And as she was crossing the stage to get her diploma, her little boy stood up in the audience and said, "That's my mama." And I thought, this is so great because you're changing two generations. You're not just changing the mom, you're inspiring and giving the model to the student, to the children. And these moms are in good jobs now. They're supporting themselves.
Let's talk about. Sorry, you go ahead. I was just going to ask you the starting of the organization. When did you first realize that? Wait a second, um, there's there's a need here. Obviously, through lived experience, but what was the why behind Gail Showalter saying, "I'm going to be that one"?
That's a really good question, but I think it's kind of a calling. You have to have a calling for something
Yes.
to see that there's a need, and then you think, well, somebody should do this, and then you think, well, maybe that somebody is me. I've been kind of like that my adult life
Mm.
in various situations. But this time, I was just doing fun things
Yes.
until 2015.
Right.
And in 2015, we made a major shift. We became a nonprofit. I had a board of directors. And that's when we started helping these moms with financial support, spiritual support, and emotional support to get through 2 years of college, to finish something if they had already started it. And it was just within me. But now the board handles it. It's evolved. It's been great blessing to watch this and to see these moms who didn't know if they could do it. And maybe they didn't have a support system because a lot of moms do not. These moms, so many of them, haven't anyone in their family that's gone to college. And they don't have that kind of rah support that says you can do this. It's more like, oh, I don't know how you're going to do this, instead of let me support you. And so we come in where they're lacking in that, and we provide that safety net that says, you know what, you're doing great, you can do this. But we don't choose just any mom. We choose moms that are motivated, they know what they want, they've already looked into the school and the college they want to go to,
Mm.
they know what they're getting into, and they can get letters of recommendation. So yes, I'm motivated, but it's an internal thing. And the women that I work with feel that way too. They're committed to this because they see it. It's such a blessing.
You use the word blessing, and it leads me into my next question. I don't want to get too personal, but where what does your faith role does your faith play in uh, in supporting these women, and also maybe in your work and compassion for going back and learning something new in order to share. You say it's a calling, but um, explain maybe to my listeners what your faith is and how that motivates you.
Well, I tell people I'm a book of James person. I believe in doing something. You know, if God gives you a gift, do something with it.
Mm.
There's also a scripture, and I wish I could give it to you right now. It might be in Thessalonians, but it's
Explain
people
it.
go through hard. Hmm?
Just explain the rough idea of the verse.
Yeah, people go through hard times
Mm.
so that later in life they can walk along others who are going through hard times. And that is says it all. I mean, I have taken my personal experiences. I have become a coach. I have started a nonprofit, and I can use all of my experiences to encourage these moms. It's one thing to just kind of pat them on the back. It's another thing when you sit with them and you say, I understand what you're going through. I have been there.
Mm.
And
Would
that
you
makes
say
a big difference.
would you say encouragement is something that we in both of our countries and everywhere in the world uh, we desperately need?
We not only need encouragement, we need to take the judgment out of it because I don't know if everybody is, but it seems to me that a lot of people are really quick to judge
Mhm.
and not to have compassion and encouragement for people who have been dealt a tough deck of cards. Now, I want to tell one story real quick. We were traveling and we were sitting at the dinner table with a group of travelers, and they were from various places. And everybody had to say, what my job is and what I do. And I just simply said, I work with single mothers. Just like that, a lady sitting across from me who obviously came from very well off background said, and do you ask them what they were thinking? And I took a step back. It took me a minute because I thought, how dare her? I was just like, how dare you? But I was calm and I explained that, a lot of these moms are abused when they're little girls. And by the time they reach puberty, they just want somebody to love them. And somebody does show some attention, and the next thing you know, they're pregnant and he's gone. So I tell that story because people are so quick to draw judgment on others instead of thinking of ways they can encourage them. I don't see how in the world you can read the New Testament and not think that our position should be one of compassion and encouragement. Now I'm preaching, but that's my thoughts.
No, the swagability is founded on the bedrock principles of the scriptures and through a biblical worldview. And we don't shy away from our faith. We believe it's the why behind why we do everything, because I believe Jesus would call us to do that. Um, tell tell me where my listeners and those listening can get their hands on the book you have written, and uh, also tell us about the one that is coming out that you're writing, if you want to.
Um, I will tell you anything that the book that I'm just starting is gonna take a while. I don't know when that's gonna happen,
Okay.
but, yes, you can reach me easily, and anybody any woman out there that wants to go to school, I have connections with a women's organization that's in Canada and in the United States that provides grants for continuing education, and I love to connect women to that organization. Now, my connection is gailshowalter.com. Great website. It's going to have everything you want, including this podcast will be on there eventually. And so go there. You can text me, you can email me, you can get a hold of me. I'm at uh, at gailshowalter.com is my email. And I'm eager to connect with women who just have something to say or want to get a little guidance, a little help on the way.
Before we let you go, Gail, if there's a listener out there right now who's, yes, interested in that, what is one word, not of just encouragement, but what is one action that someone in that situation that you described, a single mom, wants to get ahead but feels they can't? You've lived that life. You went back to school with kids and that. What's one wisdom feather out of your wisdom cap that you can pass on to that listener that's hearing this for the first time today?
I like that. I love feathers. Yeah. Um, First of all, take baby steps. Don't think you've got to do everything in 1 week.
Mm.
Take baby steps toward whatever you're thinking about doing. And nowadays, you can do that on the keyboard. You can find information at the tip of your fingers. So if you're thinking about it, get some answers, do some research, and do it slowly, one step at a time, and be easy on yourself. You can do it. You can do it.
Self-judgment. I think that's one thing that that even in my previous episode with another lady I was just speaking of is um, sometimes when these women are feeling trapped, there's so much self-judgment, they just don't know how to break the circle. So I really appreciate you giving of your time to us today, and we will make sure that your website, gailshowalter.com, is in our show notes, and there'll be a link right to that. And uh, what about anyone that is looking for? You had written some work with the blind in regards to a textbook. Is that still something that's currently being circulated?
No, I had a little book that we used for using art to teach concepts
Mm.
to visually impaired, but I can't find it online now. It was published by the American Printing House for the Blind for about 20 years until last year. So I don't think they still have that, but the American Printing House for the Blind has a lot of really good material.
Yeah, we'll link that as well. You've been a breath of fresh air. I love what you're doing. I love your organization. How can people give? Can they give through the website as well? Is there a way to make a donation and as well as to find your books?
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, there is a Facebook page that's the easiest way to find the organization, but the organization is called Single Moms Empowered. And you can go look for that if you don't find it on Facebook, and Facebook will have a connection to a website. That's on the website, you can definitely make donations. And we appreciate any donations we get because we don't pay anybody. Our money goes straight to those mothers, and we're careful how it's spent.
Yeah. Well, um, SwagAbility is in its beginning steps, but we're watching closely for other organizations that've done so well. And uh, I've looked in, and yours has done an amazing job. And I really appreciate just your candor and getting to know you. And maybe there's an episode 2.0 down the road as we continue to see. I know you're not one to sit still, so I'm anxious to see what that second book looks like, and I know there'll be many more stories included in that. Thank you, Gail, for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Friends, if you've enjoyed this episode, would you consider doing us a favor? Would you subscribe to our YouTube channel? Subscribe and do us the greatest honor for my wife and I. If you know someone that can be encouraged by today's story and today's episode, would you forward that on to them? And if you want to get in touch with us and volunteer anytime or make a donation or to learn more about what SwagAbility does, you can visit our website as well at SwagAbility.com. Until next time, friends, stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, thrive wherever life finds you. Swags out.